we do Microsoft Azure Peering Service. And in order to have this a best experience, we invited a gentleman from Microsoft to share with us the Microsoft strategy on improving the latency for their customers. It is important. It has much more workloads going into the cloud, and especially if you're talking about CRMs, ERPs in this world, which are critical to every enterprise or any network, basically. We need to make sure that the user experience is great. So Gerald Buchholz will now jump into this topic and will present the mentioned topic of improving latency with the newly built Microsoft strategy. Gerald, I'm very happy you could make it and you're joining us for our global tech meeting. It's always a pleasure having you around, or one of your colleagues as well. And yeah, I'm stopping now. It's all yours. Have a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction and welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really great to join this tech meeting and present here. So just a few words about me. I'm Gerald Buchholz. I'm a tech professional for Azure Networking, working in the EMEA team. So our team takes care of customers, partners, and peers where we work together with when it comes to questions regarding connectivity. Let me first excuse me for the background. Unfortunately, I'm still sitting in the home office, which is on the one side good, but on the other side, I don't have a nice background here or a nice office that I can show. So, and I can't change actually the background that I'm used to from my team. So I don't have that nice background here. I hope you excuse it. So let me start with my presentation. I think that's more interesting than my background here. First, I wanted to give you a broad overview on our global network. The reason is I'm always presenting this because it is crucial for all people working with Microsoft and consuming or selling or presenting Azure services to customers, because it is a vital part of our connectivity strategy, and also it is important for the usage of our services. And it's always fun for me to share some insights on our global backbone because it's simply huge. And since I'm a networking guy for more than 20 years, I'm still excited to talk about our data centers, our network, and our connectivity, and work with partners and customers on solutions that use our backbone and our networking capabilities. And if you see some of the numbers, you might know why. So let's go back to the beginning of 2020. We had 58 Azure regions. Each of these regions could have more or one data center. So we're aiming here to actually have multiple availability zones, so multiple data center in these regions. So that makes us one of the largest cloud providers looking at the regions. And also we had added some more availability zones. So we're aiming actually end of 2021 that we can actually offer an availability zone in every Azure data center region that we have. So having multiple data centers in the Azure region. Well, we also have 160 POPs we had 160 POPs where we concentrate our services and server to our clients. So actually this is the edge to our customers where we actually interconnect with customers and partners. Our network is one of the largest in the world. We're always competing whether we're number one or number two, but we have basically more than 160,000 miles of fiber and subsea cables. And I'm not talking about the fiber in our data centers, which are a couple of millions. One thing to mention here, because that's not something that is given, I think, we operate and maintain our global network on our own. So there are no third parties actually that are doing this for us. Of course, we also use smart hands if we need some services outside of our data centers, for example, in the edge locations. But basically, we try to do everything with Microsoft tech peoples as well. The least thing we use is actually a managed wavelength that we get. And where possible, we're going to lease dark fiber on long term, or even we're going to buy it. I think 2.5 years ago, we brought a new cable online, a Maria cable. We did this with Facebook, and actually we delivered an additional capacity of 160 terabit per second at that point of time. And another thing, because that's also important when you talk about network connectivity, is that all traffic that actually leaves our premises and crosses public ground is MACsec encrypted. But now it's 2021, and the question is, what happened in the last plus 12 months? Well, I think we were all hit by some situation that we didn't expect. And like you and many of our partners and customers, we were hit by the pandemic and expected never such a thing. And honestly, we're all exhausted from the situation, so I don't want to talk about this. But I wanted to highlight and mention some of the numbers we saw the last 12 plus months, because these are simply great numbers to share and give you an insight on the pure dimension that we have and actually on what's going on with Microsoft. We added the same peering capacity we added the last 20 years. We added 110 terabits capacity to our backbone, and we did this in 2 months. And in 2020, we added a total capacity of 300 terabits per second to our backbone. In early 2020, we started to sign our routes. I remember sitting, I think it was 2019 or 2018 with Thomas in Frankfurt, and he told me, "Why didn't you sign the routes?" And I said, "Honestly, I don't know." And luckily, we started in early 2020. And today, all of our plus 179,000 routes are signed. So we have the largest amount of routes signed overall. Besides peering, front door, express route, CDN, we now offer Microsoft Azure Peering Service, what we already heard about, and it was a great journey with Thomas, Gerald, and the team to work on it and to bring it to our customers and make it happen and make it available. But we also added Azure Orbital to some of our edge locations. While the first lockdown, although it was really a shock for everyone, we saw an increase of over 700% Teams usage in certain regions. I think you may have seen the blog announcement, and that was really a great number. Although the situation could have been better for everyone, but that was something we saw actually. We also saw that 100G was the new normal. We're now moving to 400G. So where we used to install 100G, and also for partners, we now see 400G coming. I know this sounds odd talking to DE-CIX or talking at the DE-CIX tech meeting, because I think they are a long-term 400G customer and deployed it already a long time or longer time. But we're starting also now to adopt it in a broad way. And despite all the challenges we saw, and some of our teams have been working 18 hours a day to cope with the situation we faced. And I'm quite sure that I can say we were in good shape before, but this was really unexpected. But it also showed that many of our processes and workflow worked, although we needed some tweaks here and there. But yeah, nevertheless, we didn't see any outage or something coming that. And thanks to our team, I'm really grateful to work with such a great team and also to work with such great partners to bring services like peering services alive. So in 2021, we raised the number of regions to 65. So we were able to add 7 more regions, which is, given the situation, really a great achievement. But also we added more than 20 POPs to our network. So we are now having more than 180 edge locations. So really a big amount of connectivity locations we have. But let's move on to what we have here. So we've heard this already. Latency is the new currency, which is what we also said 2 years ago, because we see this in the cloud world as a dramatic, important thing. Latency is really one of the key aspects when using services, because we're not always talking about web services, and even a web service is crappy usage if you have a high latency. But let's go on to our goals. So first of all, please forgive me, the internet, of course, is a much bigger thing here. But this is just a symbolic thing here. And we all know that it's not the internet. And also, this is just a simplified picture, and not all our sites are offer the same services and the same connectivity options. Of course, we're rolling out things, but take ExpressRoute or ExpressRoute Direct, it's not available in all of the 180 plus edge locations. But let's start. If you look at the different cloud services we offer, we see different requirements for bandwidth and latency. If you think about using Microsoft 365 OneDrive, latency is not that important, because sync will happen always in the background, and a user might even not feel a difference when working with OneDrive if he's using a high-speed, low-latency connection, or if he's working abroad on a slow connection with higher latency. But if you think about real-time communications using Teams, this changes dramatically. Users expect good voice and video quality, and so latency and also bandwidth become critical. And, being or living in Germany, knowing the good old ISDN network that we had, the Integrated Services Digital Network, or we have the highest requests when it comes to voice quality. And that's also what we aim to have here. Teams voice requires a latency from less than 50 milliseconds so that clients have enough time for buffering and processing. So that's just the latency we see on the wire. And while we see bandwidth is more or less easy to scale, of course, just drawing a high level picture here, capacity needs to be augmented on the whole path, and also partners and customers must have the capacity. But latency is much more difficult, and since we all still depend on the law of physics, we must cope with it and find a way to improve it. Well, I'm still waiting for a solution that will overcome law of physics, but I think that's still a couple of years ago, and it will come with other things, I think. Today, we provide less than 30 milliseconds for 80% of the global GDP population. That's actually our goal that we have, and we're doing this today already. But we're still raising the bar, and where we want to decrease latency while increasing reach. And if we look at the future services, like we announced a couple of months ago or a year ago now, Project X Cloud, so having Xbox delivered as a service from the cloud, latency becomes even more important also for consumers. Because if people, for example, use Skype in their private life, latency, of course, might be an issue, but it's not that hindering. So they don't feel bad if they get a bad voice quality on Skype. Like someone really gets frustrated if his game streaming from our net or from Xbox Live won't work, or from Xbox Cloud. So we can control the traffic, of course, that entered our network and that is traveling on our network, and also where the traffic leaves it. But we can't control the traffic outside of our network. One thing, for example, that we do to control the traffic on our network is that we keep the traffic as long as possible on our network. And we work with many ISPs and peer with many ISPs to actually get the traffic as soon as possible to us. So our aim is to get to as close to the user as possible by skipping large parts of the internet, just peering with many ISPs to get the last mile. Well, there's one thing, not everything is really a cold potato routing on our backbone. Customers now have the choice to say, I don't want to use a cold potato routing. For some services, we now offer a hot potato routing. So we're entering the network as close to the service the customer wants to consume, and we're also leaving it directly as close as possible to the services left. So what are we looking now to optimize the latency? It is the thing that is out of Microsoft's control here. So we offer things like ExpressRoute and ExpressRoute Direct. So offering direct connectivity to our services, where we give customers an option to connect directly at our edge, either through a partner like DE-CIX with a maximum bandwidth of 10 gigabits, or directly to us using ExpressRoute Direct with up to 100 gigabits. The gotcha is that we don't offer all services from Microsoft through ExpressRoute Direct. The reason is that certain services like Microsoft 365 rely and are optimized to be used over the internet. Also, the traffic pattern that we see is different for enterprise customers. They use ExpressRoute to connect to their infrastructure as a service or platform as a service workloads located in Azure, and that should not be publicly accessible. Of course, we also offer publicly accessible services, but many, especially large companies, would like to actually have private connectivity to us, or prefer to have private connectivity to us. To give, and we already heard it, last year we launched with DE-CIX the peering service, so a product to actually limit or to actually give customers control on the first mile of connectivity, so that actually they have control between what's happening between their network and our network, and that using internet services. But what again are the options that we have to actually minimize the latency? Again, given the fact that we can't ignore the law of physics, we must work with it. And one way to do this is to minimize the path to our users. We're doing this by constantly adding edge sites where we see that improvements are needed, and an edge site would help to reduce latency, of course. We've been building edge sites for more than 20 years, but with a growing number of cloud services and their usage in our data centers, we needed to become more agile and faster adding edge sites. And as I've talked briefly about it earlier, in the last 2 years, we've added more than 50 sites around the globe, optimizing latency for millions of users and bringing us closer to our goal to reduce latency for our services. And in each of these edge sites, we peer with different ISPs to get closer to our customers. So what is the option we see also that we can do actually? It is about adding edge sites and giving more connectivity to different ISPs so that we get more eyeballs that actually connect to our network using the different ISPs. But what we also see is that peerings are an important thing here, but we also need to integrate deeper. So a good example that I see is Germany. We have edge sites now in Frankfurt, Berlin, Düsseldorf, Munich, and Hamburg, and we peer with ISPs in all these locations. But we also took the approach to integrate closer with large ISPs and mobile network operators, not only by offering PNIs, but also by having multiple connections to them. We saw actually that even the largest ISPs and mobile network operators had only a few breakouts to us. Although, to be honest, latency is in Germany not a big deal as long as you're not living in the Eifel or somewhere there where you might suffer from it, or you're driving through to the back of Bavaria where you also might expect high latency on your mobile network. But it still shows that if you want to provide services, for example, for gaming, you need to get closer and integrate deeper with the network, with the ISPs to actually get the workloads faster to Azure. Also, if you think about that customers use ISPs networks to build their next version of their existing global network, so replacing or actually augmenting capacity on their existing MPLS or extending the existing MPLS maybe with, for example, SD-WAN, it becomes crucial to actually get a low latency because that will break the barrier, and that actually can only be achieved if you have multiple entries in our network. But not only Germany, we added so much locations. We also added locations in Angola, Kenya, Johannesburg, and Cape Town in South Africa, Stavanger in Norway, Chile, Vietnam, and a couple of more locations all around the world. Because we don't want to offer only services to a few people, we strive to reach a lot of people to actually provide our services to them. What can we provide to go beyond? That is now leaving the classical peering strategy, but it is something that is very important if you think about what we heard from Thomas as well, where he said they want to have additional IXs and they want to provide these services at a pre-configured unit. It was interesting to see because we're doing something similar. Because when it comes to ultra-low latency, to enable new scenarios, we needed something new. And we introduced something that is called Edge Zones. And this actually bridges the gap between Azure regions and private Edge Zones running on customer premises by actually adding Edge Zones in facilities that are Microsoft rented, that are actually in data center space, where we actually put our Edge Zone servers. Or we're also going to add Edge Zones to carriers. One thing is to actually get them or to actually provide them services for their own 5G network, but also to bring our services deeper into these networks and minimize the latency that we have here. But how does an Azure Edge Zone look like? So it's Azure running a remote site, completely managed and integrated in Azure. So there's no different in tooling or design patterns. Customers can just use their existing knowledge and keep what they love to use. So they don't need to learn something new. If they create a new service in Azure, they're going to simply choose not West Europe as region or Germany West Central as region, or they're going to choose the Azure Edge Zone, which might be located within a provider's location, within a mobile network operator, or locally in their own data center. So we're bringing the services closer to the user minimizing latency and reduced backhaul bandwidth so that even the most latency demanding applications can be run in Azure. And we have actually, when we're making this part of our global backbone with the right connectivity. So we're nearing the end of the presentation. One common thing you've heard many times before, and I want to rephrase that because I really liked it and I'm still liking it if I see it. It's one more thing. For many partners, ISPs and customers, we've been hearing that they want something in their network to cache local content from our network. For example, we offer our own CDN services. So customers were asking us, can we do this? Or can we get parts of Windows Update or anything like this into our network? And I'm not talking about the Windows software update services or something like this. I'm talking really about what is usually coming from the CDNs at static content. So good news is we might have something for you because we created a Microsoft Connected Cache, a software that you can deploy to cache Microsoft content. You means you as a partner, as an ISP in your network. You can also mean that it's an enterprise. So we offer this broadly, and it's now in preview. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll be happy to provide the right contact and work with you on getting this into your network. So you're going to provide the hardware, we're going to provide the software, and then actually you can start caching content. But unfortunately, I don't have a fancy slide here. I just have a picture from one of our data centers. I hope you like it still. And that's the only thing I can provide today because it was really something hot off the press that actually came off internally a couple of days ago. We still don't have nice marketing or fancy slides. So if you're interested, please let me know.
Gerald,
Yes?
sorry, I need to jump in here. It looks like you are really ending the slideshow, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. This is great. Thank you very much. Sorry for interrupting you, but we have a really tight schedule nowadays, and sorry that you are the one that's suffering from the overachieving of the overconsuming of time from the previous speaker. I'm very sorry for this, but as a moderator, sometimes you be the devil's advocate here, and I'm very sorry, and I apologize for this that I had to jump into. Nevertheless, hey, Gerald, it was just an honor and just a great presentation. I never knew that Microsoft is that big. I know it's big, but sometimes it's always good to see how big the Microsoft network is, what you else do, what you do for the customers to make them, giving them a better experience. That's really great. So yeah, I guess you somehow deserve the leading position in the cloud game. So that's why you do a lot of work for this. Thank you for this, Gerald.
One last word, Thomas. I hope to see a new peak traffic record tonight at DE-CIX, starting at 6 p.m. Okay, great. Thanks for having me.
I guess so. Thank you, Gerald. Goodbye. It was a pleasure again. Thank you very much for your great presentation.